I'm Donna Athern, president of the Volusia County Beekeepers, and I'm here to teach you a little bit about honeybees. The question is, bees and their changing environment. What in the world is happening with the bees and their environment? Isn't that a beautiful picture of a bee? Over time and through history, we've been able to manage our bees. Through history, the Apis mellifera has been managed with all sorts of different methods of keeping them in a trained box where we're able to steal their honey and their wax, as we have done for the last 7,000 years. Over time, in Nepal and in other countries, they've had to cut the comb out off of the limbs and off of the rock areas through methods of holding a basket, being pulled by a ladder, or hanging by a rope. There are evidence of the bees that have been documented in ancient history that we have stolen from them for years. Once they realized honeybees can pollinate our crops, they provide a pollen and nectar source for our digestive systems to work better, and these documented drawings that you've seen in Egypt and in other countries on these rock formations have shown us that bees can be used for an enormous amount of things. Remember, it's practicing medicine. They used to sting you with the bee. But their environment was much different than our own now. As we were learning how to manage the population of bees and commercially manage the population of bees, once they've used these cellular tubes because they realized, hey, honeybees are all over the place, but they seem to like these cylindrical boxes to be in. So they learned that they could make a plunger at the back of a box and squeeze all of the honey and wax to drain out all that was collected by the honeybees. So commercial beekeeping has been going on in Rome and Paris and France, all over the world. But again, their environment was so much different than ours is today. These are commercial beehives that were kept near the home. A lot of times they were on the outskirts of a city or a walled area by the home. And believe it or not, women took care of the whole place. An amazing thing, if it was by the home, men thought it's a woman's job to maintain the hives, which is possibly true, but the women seemed to have a knack for doing it. They were using honey as their sweetener. They were also using it in medicines. Women were the ones who were taking care of the children, and kids get scratched up, and they would put honey and wax over the injury, and it would heal. They're an amazing animal. These little insects have been around for a lot of years, and women took care of these commercial hives the exact same way that men did. For many, many years, they would pull these cells out of the back. It's nice to know that women had a real job in society and different ways of doing it. The women were the ones who actually came out with these Langstroth type of hives, but it was done as a basket woven together where the women could take the lid off and the comb would be dragged down off of the lid by the bees. I guess it's a symbiotic relationship. But even in different environments of the world, bees survive very well in different forms. These women are the ones who are in third world countries where they have begun businesses. Women can't work in third world countries a lot of times, and so they go into business by taking care of the honeybees. Commercial beekeeping is a very, very large business. Most commercial beekeepers are moving their hives from farm to farm. The almond crop is one of the largest crops that are pollinated by honeybees. We've realized that their importance to our survival is immense, and so the environment had to change around some of these areas because the bees really don't like almonds. They aren't so bad with other crops. Blueberries, strawberries, other agriculture has been used to pollinate with bees. But also in a lot of environments, the bees make their own nest. So what is it that's killing off all the bees? What's changed so drastically that has caused our colonies to start collapsing? Why all the alarm? Well, let's take a look at what they can do. A honeybee is capable of collecting 2 million blossoms to get 1 pound of honey. That's enormous. They can fly roughly 55,000 miles just for a pollen or nectar source. But what's killing them? How about a varroa mite? Is that the nastiest looking animal thing you've ever seen? A varroa mite is a bee's version of a tick. So if you could imagine walking around with this basketball attached to the back of your neck, well, that's what a varroa mite can be like for a bee. And they have very devastating effects. When they are being attacked inside of the cell, remember this is the larvae system, inside of the cell is where that larvae is being sucked dry, and it causes deformed wing syndrome. Bees will come out of the cell and be dead with no wings. They can't fly, they can't produce, they can't do anything. So there's a lot of other problems with their digestive system as well. They can get bacteria just like you and I can. But the varroa mite is the most destructive of the whole colony of problems. Also, there's parasites, and these viruses that attack the bees can be picked up from a various amount of sources. The other big killer is a hive beetle. Once a hive becomes very, very weak, it's capable of only taking care of a small amount of the babies in the larva section of the hive. And so when these hive beetles come in, they chew out and gnaw into the wood, they get into the wax, they can leave their larvae inside for all of the babies to be eaten up by it. It's just an ugly situation, and where can we protect them? So it could also maybe be the water. Maybe they're getting something out of the water sources that they've gone to, these little lily pads and spots along the waterway where they sit along the side of a bank and there's runoff. Pollens could be affected. That a lot of times we spray for insects. We don't think about the other insects we might be killing when we're spraying them, but that dust and that formula lands on places where the bee may be coming back from collecting and foraging. You know, foraging and returning to the hive, everybody touches everything. When a bee comes back to the hive, she comes and meets the carrier at the door. They lick and clean and pull all of the pollens off of their hairy little bodies, and then that is taken in as the most efficient way back inside the hive. The other bees come out while it's still at the door, dumping its load of product. It's giving that nectar that it collected to the bee at the door. Then it's taken back inside of the hive and spit back into the cell where it's going to be dehydrated. Could something be happening in that process? You know, it could be all of the above. What happens inside the hive is a colony of each little bitty part. So, got any questions?
Can you tell me how people can get a hold of you or to learn more about bees?
We have our bee club, which is dedicated to teaching people how to become backyard beekeepers. You don't have to have large colonies or be a commercial beekeeper, but keeping a couple of hives can help regenerate what's happening in our hives. South Carolina and North Carolina are two of the largest states for backyard beekeeping, and their clubs also promote that. We can be contacted at beekeepersofvolusiacounty.org. We are a local club. We meet in DeLand on the fourth Wednesday of every month. 6:30 is our meeting time, and we set out a calendar of events at the first part of the year where we design out days where we're going to have speakers at night in our club meeting, or we will have a day in the bee yard where you can actually come out, get in a bee suit and be inside of that hive.
Sounds like fun.
It's a chance for you to really see what it's like being a beekeeper, as well as learning. We promote a lot of our learning and book reading from books like Backyard Beekeeping 101, Basic Beekeeping 101. University of Florida offers the Bee College, where you can go to Bee College in March, as a matter of fact. The classes start up. They'll be online, $125, cover 4 days of classes. You can choose to take 1 day of classes or back out and just do all 4. But University of Florida's bee extension lab has been enormous to help bring back the colonies of bees. There's several other ways you can learn about honeybees, going online to the beekeepers' websites. We like to do our own little presentations as well, and we have one called Being a Hive Detective. So you can go and learn a little more about what we do as beekeepers, not only to collect honey and wax, but to understand a little more about how we can broaden the environment that they're working in.
Perfect. Can you think of anything else?
Of course. I always want to tell people about the different honey products that are offered by bees, because one of the first questions I get is when people ask, when bees are collecting all of the nectar, how do we know it's safe? Well, the bees are going to tell us if it's safe. First, if they've come up with any kind of viruses or illnesses, we'll find dead bees, and we have to remove those frames from the hive and destroy them. If our bees are healthy and our hives are healthy, then we're going to provide a good honey product. Now, honey is in a lot of forms, and we've listened to a lot of different people with a lot of different answers to allergies, and a lot of it's untrue. The truth to this is, if you're buying local honey and it's being produced by a beekeeper, we take a lot of pride in making sure we do not heat the product. We are not filtering the product. We want you to get as much of that pollen source as possible. Nectar, which is what the bees are collecting out of the flowers, when it's dehydrated by the bees by a passive dehydration system, it's like blowing bubbles in your milkshake and then flapping your wings. You draw the water out and they fan it with their wings. So when they dehydrate it, we try and bring it down just a little bit lower to remove the water content so that the bacteria level's lower and it won't ferment or go bad. If beekeepers are trying to hurry the product and not allow the bees to properly dehydrate it and seal it, then you can wind up with bad product, or it'll seem foamy at the top when you open the lid. But our products are all very well managed. Any beekeeper is going to provide a good product. Now, the different pollen sources are going to provide a different nectar. So some are going to be higher in water content. An example of that is the mangrove honey. Mangrove honey has a very high water content. It comes into the hive at almost 78% water. The bees dehydrate that down and provide it at just about 19%, sometimes 20%. But we bring it down even more so that it's less chance of it fermenting. It will crystallize. All honey is going to crystallize. Don't throw it away, no matter what you do. It's fine. Just simply warm up water, let it sit and loosen. You can still use it as it's crystallized. You can put it in your tea, just don't overheat it. And then at each different time of year, you're going to get a different pollen source and a different nectar source that is going to change the flavor of the honey. Some honeys are going to have a very berry kind of finish to the taste. Brazilian pepper honey has an ever so slight sweet pepper to the finish on the taste. But you've got to have a good palate to pick it out. And most of the time you're going to put it in your tea anyway or in your coffee. But if you're getting it for your allergies, you want to get a honey that is for that particular time of year where your allergies are the worst. For me, oak honey, oh my word, that's the hardest time of year for me. But oak pollen isn't something the bees are collecting. Remember, their bodies are full of hair, and when they're flying through the air, static electricity allows that pollen to collect on them. Remember, they come to the door and they unload their product with the other bees at the door. That's how that oak pollen gets into the honey. So the first pull out of the year, which is going to be in April, most of the time the beginning or end of April, depending on how much rain we get and how the weather holds for warm air, then that's the honey you want to collect. And then you want to start taking that honey in October and November. And then in December and January, when those pollens hit you, you're already introducing those pollens into your body and helping your body immune system kick it. I hope that helps to understand a little more about it. And the other thing I like to tell people is this. If you have an issue with worms or bugs or things in your yard and you're going to have them spray, listen, save your money. Go out there with a little bit of vinegar to kill your weeds. Coca-Cola and vinegar can douse weed. You don't want to use Roundup if you can avoid it. Those products can get into the hive and within 2 weeks can kill a beehive. So as fast as these little girls can work, is as fast as you can kill them. So let's not add to the problems of their environment. It's bad enough as it is, especially with the varroa mite.
I hope you enjoyed watching our video. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel.